what I've noticed is what really gets you gigs is being able to execute. So if they send out a song or whatever, a set of songs, you've got to be able to play it the way that they've sent it out.
Hey everybody, this is Ivan Santiago with Pass the Mic. I'm here with a special guest, Ron Rawls. He is the music director for the artist Mandisa. He's also a keyboardist, amazing producer, and a worship artist. So I want to welcome him here today.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
So, we've kind of spoken about what this is,
Yeah.
and it's all about sharing your story. So this is an opportunity for you to share with whoever's watching just a little bit about you so they can get to know you. So if you don't mind, can you share just kind of how your upbringing, a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, man. Well, I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, come from a musical family. My dad plays keys, my uncle plays drums, and everybody else on my dad's side, they do something, whether it's singing or playing. So honestly, like Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the holidays growing up, were centered around music. We were playing music at someone's house or playing music at church. It was literally everywhere. And so that was my life growing up. I mean, I started playing drums as a little kid, and around the age of 12, I realized that the line was shorter to playing keys than it was to playing drums. So then I flipped over and started playing keys. I've been doing music since then, man. I'm 36 now, so that's a lot of life.
Still young, man.
Music. Yeah.
So growing up, it's almost like you didn't even have a choice.
Oh, yeah,
It was all around you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could try to choose something else, but it kept showing up. So I mean, yeah, that was just it was in me. Honestly, my dad, he started trying to teach me keys for a little bit when I was younger, and I wasn't serious about it. And so around the age of 12 was when I really started to kind of spend more time with it, and I fell in love with the instrument. Yeah.
So you say the line was shorter.
Yeah.
That was in what kind of setting?
So in church.
Church, yeah.
In church, you'd show up and there's like tons of drummers with their stick bags or just a
on
pair
the
of
wall,
sticks.
right?
Oh man, they're line the wall, 5 or 6 drummers deep, man. But keys, there was nobody in line. There was one guy ready to play. And a lot of the services when I grew up, if there's just one guy, he can't do all the services. So surely at some point he's going to show up late or not be there. Ding, ding. That was my chance.
So here's a question. I know I grew up in church, and
Yeah.
I hate to say this because I don't even reference myself as a drummer, but I started off as a church drummer.
Yeah.
But in my scenario, like, I feel like it would be easier for me to just visualize drums, how they're playing. Keys is more intricate because you're having chords and there's a lot more going on. Like, how hard was it for you to pick up playing keys in that environment?
It wasn't as tough, just because there were so many keyboard players, like good keyboard players around me, and my dad, he was involved with, helping, get me started. So, I mean, from that perspective, it was a little bit easier, I guess, to step into it. I don't know. But growing past it, like growing past our environment was a bit difficult because I grew up in one of those really strict homes where you're only listening to gospel music or, church CDs. So around the college time is when I started to listen to more music and, expand, what I was actually able to consume as a musician and just a music lover.
So as far as chords, right?
Yeah.
So when you were listening to music, did you have a lot of sit down time and just like matching notes and trying to put notes together to form chords?
Yeah. So one CD that I remember, actually it was tapes back then. I would listen to a Hezekiah Walker tape. Literally, I'd listen to one song and I'd just keep rewinding every chord until I heard like, okay, I hear another note.
So you were actually like spelling it out.
Yeah, chord for chord. So like, okay, that chord I don't know. Let's just keep rewinding it. So I'm rewinding it. Okay, I hear this note. Boom. Add another note. Literally, that's how I was piecing it together.
And so this kind of became like when you were in the short line at church.
Yeah.
It was like you had this arsenal of what you had heard on this recording, and then you would just try and apply it when you hit the keyboard.
Yeah. So it was CD or tapes like Hezekiah Walker, but then it was also preaching tapes. Because we grew up, like, I was the organist at our church, Kojic Church, and a lot of, like, what we did was based off of, or a lot of what I learned was based off of some preaching tapes that I'd listened to. So I'd listen to the organist backing up the preacher, and I'm just, again, rewinding the tape, grabbing out notes from each chord, trying to, put chords together, and it was a lot of fun, man. That was research for me.
Absolutely. That was YouTube.
Yeah.
Literally.
It was way before YouTube. Nobody was spelling it out visually, so I just had to use my ear, which now I look back and it's like, man, that was training my ear way back then.
And I was just going to interject with that, like, how much importance do you find that plays in where you're at now? The ability that you, unlike maybe some other people, you were forced to use your ear, and so your ear was trained.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I think it was paramount just for my development. And I mean, I can lean on my ear now in moments where, if we are lost, as a band with Mandisa trying to figure out different vocal parts, or if, there's just something happening, like a chord rub or whatever, we could just pick out the note, like, hey, let's take that F out of there, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So, as a young child, you're in this environment, you're surrounded by musicians that are in your family, you're surrounded by people at church. What were some dreams that you had? Like, even if they weren't musical dreams, what were some dreams that you had?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they were mostly musical. Well, there were two dreams. I loved playing basketball. Clearly didn't keep up with that. But I loved playing basketball as a little kid. But then also the musical dream was to, don't laugh, be a musician for a preacher as he's traveling the world. That was my dream. Yeah. And so I ended up not doing that, but I ended up traveling, which ended up better. Traveling with Mandisa, Nicole Simone, and a few others throughout the years. So still traveling and in a way bringing, hope and encouragement to people, which is, bringing the gospel to them. So.
Okay, so in your mind's eye as a kid, 12-year-old kid, you have this dream, right?
Yeah.
Or these dreams. So talking about music, because that's where we're at, that's what we're here for today, how much of it seemed realistic to you as a young boy? Like, did it seem like, because sometimes we have dreams, right? And for some people it doesn't pan out. But obviously for you it panned out. So did it seem like that was just something that was continually pushing you, that dream? Did you feel like it was attainable?
I don't know, man. Like, honestly, I was in the moment. And so I don't know if it was our, upbringing or what, but I really wasn't thinking, if I'm honest, I wasn't thinking like beyond traveling with a preacher. I wasn't really thinking, okay, one day I want to be here, or one day I want to be there. I was just taking it moment by moment. And I knew in the moment I love music and I just want to keep doing this.
So you were enjoying your journey.
I really was. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the research moments, I was enjoying that. When I moved to college, I didn't know that Nashville was as big as it is. I had no clue. Like, my friends and I made 2 or 3 trips up here just to visit some music stores and whatnot. But I really didn't know Nashville was such a hub for music as it is. So I was just taking it moment by moment. I knew around high school that I was interested in production. So I just moved to MTSU to study production. And then, that world started to grow, and I got connected with traveling and all that. When I stepped into the traveling world, I didn't know how big it was until I got there. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes I wonder if I knew how big the circles that I'd step into would be. I don't know. Like, maybe I wouldn't appreciate it as much, or I don't know. But
it's interesting because for myself, I'm not going to say that I constantly was dreaming about doing it,
Yeah.
but I did have some version of dreaming. Like, I always tell people, like, I had G.I. Joes and I would set them up for concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear because I've heard a lot of people say, enjoy the process.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes we get so focused on the end result that we're not enjoying like the intricacies of rewinding the tape a million times and just enjoying behind the preacher or at the church in that moment. Because that's what brings us to music, right, is enjoyment.
Yeah. Now, I do have to rewind the tape a bit because I did have a dream as a kid. I used to set up my drums in the garage.
Okay.
And our garage was open to, like, we didn't have many neighbors where we were, but it was just a big, like, highway right in front of us. Mm-hmm. And so, in my opinion, I was playing for thousands, right there.
So there was an element of that.
There was an element of that growing up. But when I stepped out of the drummer line to go to the keys line, and maybe I forgot about that. Who knows?
So you go from having dreams and getting prepared, you go off to MTSU and you're studying production. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of different angles I'd like to go into, but let's start off with this. What was your big break, if you want to call it a break?
I feel like what really kicked the door open for me was when I started working with Nicole Simone. I was in school, and a friend of mine named Barnard Harris, he moved to town. He wasn't a friend at that time. I actually was at a convention, a church convention, and I saw him doing this thing. He had like a smooth jazz setup, and they were killing, like blazing. And I was in Nashville serving at my church at another moment, and they said, "Hey, we just hired the bass player. He's coming to town. His name is Barnard Harris." I'm like, "What?" So, literally, him when he stepped in, foot into our church and he started serving there, I was already serving there. That was my connect, and literally, he was already out with Nicole, and she needed a keyboard player. He opened that door for me to play for her, and honestly, I've not looked back since, like, to a degree.
How did you feel? Because here it is, like, you're having a dream, right? And then all of a sudden, it's like destiny collides, right?
Yeah.
And then you get this call, or you get this question, can you come out?
Yeah.
How did that feel for you?
It was overwhelming. Because, you don't know if you're ready or not. I mean, I was nervous, like, every night for, a while. And our first event was somewhere in the States, but then our second event was literally overseas in Europe, London, England. And it was just crazy. I was like, what in the world? What am I doing here? And to be honest, I didn't know what I was stepping into because I was a college student. I was broke, literally broke. And I'm like, what am I doing in London playing for this artist? And obviously they pay you well, so, But that was my second gig, so I didn't have, like, stacks of money, or any of that type of thing. So it was just a blessing to be, in the moment. I was just there, just enjoying it, doing my hardest to learn the music and show up professional, and, yeah, we had a blast. And I had no clue that I'd keep doing that for all these years.
So that led you... How long were you with Nicole Simone?
6 or 7 years.
So it was a long stretch.
Yeah.
At what point did the connection happen for you to transition into Mandisa?
So Nicole started doing a few other tours where she didn't have her band with her as much. And so our dates got lower and lower. And somewhere in there, we got connected with Mandisa. She was coming off of American Idol, and she needed a band. And we had, very little dates on the other side. And so it just kind of was a natural progression over into the Mandisa camp.
And what was the connect, I guess?
Management, they just called. They said, hey.
So they just kind of knew that you guys were doing your thing? And
yeah, they're like, hey, we heard y'all don't have many dates. Are you available to play, a couple of dates for this new artist? And we played a few dates for her. And years later, still playing for her.
So you said when the first connection happened with Barnard, you were at church. This guy, wonderful person. Barnard is a wonderful person.
Yeah.
Barnard comes to the church, and you weren't expecting that.
No.
You could have never have, planned that. So
No, my mind was in school and serving my church. That was it. I really wasn't. I didn't know this whole touring world existed, and so I was just there for school, church, loving life. Maybe I'll find a girl and get married. Like that's where I was at that moment.
So I think one of the key things that I know for me, or talking with people, that resonates is that you have to be ready.
Yeah.
And so obviously there was something that Barnard saw in you at that point. Can you maybe elaborate on being ready for when your opportunity comes?
Yeah. I think the availability of it helped. But honestly, it was serving, like being faithful, like serving my church. And that's just something that we grew up with, about as far as like being faithful. So, I mean, Barnard was able to see that I was showing up on time for rehearsals. He's able to see that I was learning the music when they sent it out. All that stuff, I feel like plays a big role in someone opening a door for you later.
And I like that because that's something I wanted to highlight.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can even elaborate on that. I think a lot of times as young musicians, we're focused on, like, especially this generation, and I'm not hating on it, but chops. Yeah. Everything is chops and how much can I do? But what the things you just highlighted to get the gig, it had nothing to do with necessarily chops. Like, obviously you have to be able to play and hold your own.
Yeah.
But can you elaborate on things that somebody watching that aspires to do this, things in addition to the obvious playing, that you need to be able to get a gig?
Yeah. I think for me, what I've noticed is what really gets you gigs is being able to execute. So if they send out a song or whatever, a set of songs, you've got to be able to play it the way that they've sent it out, at least, like as a starting base. Sure, it'd be great to make it better if that's what they want, but you have to be able to execute the song. So for me, that was making charts. And I didn't know much about making charts at that time, but I learned how to, do it.
Number charts?
Yeah, number charts. There's all kinds that you can do, but I learned the Nashville number system. And I feel like that was helpful because it really helped, like, with retaining music, retaining the information. It just helped, to be able to play accurately what you're hearing or whatever.
So you get an opportunity.
Yeah.
And obviously you did well because it led you to where you're at now.
Yeah.
So some of the things that you would say once you have a gig, right? There's plenty of people that get a gig and then they lose a gig.
Yeah.
How do you keep a gig?
Staying faithful. I mean, number one, you started doing it because you love music. So I think keeping that love and that passion will keep you interested during the hard times, because I mean the music industry has its highs and lows. Like, I mean, you just heard my story of we're busy and then we get slow, then you got to figure out how to get more work, so you go work with another artist. But even then, that stuff can like really jade you a little bit and make you feel like, I don't feel like learning this music or whatever. But I think executing your music well, learning it, taking the time to stay fresh as a musician, all of that helps.
Now,
to keep your gig.
To lose your gig,
Ooh.
There's plenty of things you can do.
Yeah.
And I think people need to know that, right? Professionalism. Can you highlight what that means to you?
Yeah. I know I keep driving home learning the music, but really also showing up to rehearsals already knowing your music. That doesn't waste your counterpart's time. You got 3 or 4 other musicians, singers, the artist. They're all waiting on you to learn one chord or waiting on you to learn the whole song. That's not okay. But then also showing up on time. Yes, we know you're an amazing musician, but you really have to show up on time and yeah, just do your role, know your role, like you're there to support. And I know we all at some point have this desire maybe to be the artist, and that's great. But if you're stepping into another artist's space, you're there to serve them, to serve their ministry, or to serve their, whatever it is that they're doing. And so to do that, with excellence.